Welcome to the Profile Corner. In today's video I thought we'd take a look at a special plane that I did not show previously in any of my videos. This plane happened to be over in the corner and I had not noticed it earlier. Apparently I picked it up at an auction some time ago, and this is actually a plane that I had been looking for quite some time. It is a Stanley Bedrock 605 plane. I've seen them listed out on eBay from anywhere from $130 on up to $200 or more. And so I was really in search of one of these planes for quite some time. And I happened to pick one up, and then I completely forgot about it. Now this, in comparison, is a regular Stanley number 5 plane. Okay, I've got 5 of these planes, which are quite common. This one happens to be of a similar vintage to the one that I located just recently here. This is a Stanley Bedrock 605 plane. It says Bedrock in the front here, and on the back side it says 605 right there. There's a single patent date up here behind the frog, and there's almost a sticker remaining here on the handle. This plane is in a little bit rough shape. There's also a Stanley lever cap on this plane, and I found a website on the internet that helps to date these planes, specifically the Bedrock planes, and I printed out some of the information that I found on their site. I'll put this up on the screen so that it's easier for you to read. However, if we go down through the different types, get down to type 7, one patent date behind the frog, U.S. patent, April 19th, 2010. That is actually on this plane. Back in here, the lever cap is marked Stanley, only in a notch rectangle, and that's on that plane. And the iron is supposed to have AA stamped onto it. According to this information, the plane was produced between 1923 and 1935. These Bedrock planes were in production from 1998 through 1942. The earlier versions did not have this flat spot at the top. This started out later on, and that's the way I'm able to identify that it's a Bedrock plane, is because of this flat section here. But it also has 2 extra screws up in this area here behind the frog that allow this frog to shift forward and backward to either open up or close the mouth. So that's kind of an interesting feature. This plane is completely unrestored. I don't really want to destroy the patina on it because that'll lower its value. And so I just want to clean it up enough so that I'm able to use it. Now this plane is in a bit worse shape. As you can see here, it has quite a bit of rust on it. This number 5 plane has much less value to it than the Bedrock planes. These planes are supposed to be superior to the regular Bailey style planes because the mouth is able to be adjusted without removing the plane iron, and also it's supposed to have a more stable mount for the plane iron. As I mentioned, I don't want to destroy the patina of this old plane. However, it would be nice if there wasn't rust on the sides and there wasn't paint on the sole, and rust on this other side here, and then rust on the plane iron as well. The parts probably need to be lubricated a bit, and so I'd like to take care of that today, as well as sharpening the blade, and then we can test this out and see if this plane does a good job with its intended purpose of planing boards. I happened to be in Walmart today, and I found that they've got a product in there for $7. It's called Rust-Oleum Rust Dissolver Jelly. I bought it that, thinking that maybe this would be helpful in the process. I believe it was the second video on this channel where I used a variety of different products as rust removers to get rid of some rust that was on white side router bits that I picked up on eBay. In that video, I used vinegar, orange juice, flat Diet Coke. It's Diet Coke that's probably 5 years old, as well as Diet Cherry Coke that had just come from the store a couple weeks earlier. In that video, I found that all four of the products worked within 2 hours. However, the vinegar required the product to be scrubbed afterwards. And one of these products, it was either the orange juice or the vinegar, did not end up blackening the steel, at least not immediately. However, after about 24 hours, all the steel had a slightly blackened appearance after it was cleaned with these products. I'm not sure if the same problem would happen with this rust remover, but that is a definite concern that I've got. And so I may look at using some other techniques to remove the rust, such as using steel wool and maybe some abrasive, such as coarse steel wool and then fine steel wool. We'll have to take a look and see what works out the best. I'm going to tip the camera down so it's easier for you to see what I'm doing here on the bench. And then we'll get started. I'll get started here by removing the lever cap so I can remove the plane iron to get those out of the way. There's quite a bit of rust on here, so I'm not sure if I'll be able to see those stampings that I'm supposed to see on here. Let's see if we can take a little bit of WD-40 and maybe some steel wool, and we can try to clean this up a little bit. I've got to get some sort of a screwdriver that I can use to open this up. Okay, so I found my largest flat tip screwdriver. And I'm still not seeing any kind of a date on these or any kind of a stamping. We'll try to hit it with a little bit of WD-40. I put down some craft paper on my workbench here so that I don't have to remove any rust or anything like that from the surface. Okay, this is the finer grit steel wool. Let's try the quartz grit. I do see a Stanley logo on this, and it says Made in the USA. I do not see any other kind of a YY stamping or anything like that. WD-40 and rust steel wool. And of course, steel wool seems to have left the majority of the rust. However, there's still a bit of staining left behind. And so we have to try that Rust-Oleum product and see if it can remove the staining. This lever is stamped Stanley. And now I'll use a little bit of mineral spirits to try to clean up some of the area that's back in here that's got a bit of dirt on it. I don't want to damage this Sharpening any more than necessary. I didn't get all the rust off, but I don't actually want to take all that rust off because that's the patina that makes the plane valuable. I just want to take it down enough so that it's usable. If I ever feel like using a plane, I would more than likely grab this one than I would a standard Stanley number 5. Okay, now we'll set that Bedrock plane aside just for a few minutes, and then we'll take a look and see if this product is going to do anything for this rust condition that we've got here. I should probably hit this first with a little bit of steel wool just to rough up the surface a little bit. Probably would help if I removed the plane iron too. Okay, now I can wipe this down. This is a gel version, so So it should work on vertical surfaces as well. If this works well on this plane, I may use it on, for instance, the column of my drill press, because that's gotten to be quite rusty over time. I've got to keep this wet for a certain period of time. I believe it's 25 to 30 minutes. I don't think that's going to be a problem because it's only about 50 degrees today. Okay, we'll let this sit for 15-20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes, and see what it looks like afterwards. I'll bring it up a little bit closer so you can see the starting point. After removing the coarse amount of the rust using the steel wool. The Rust-Oleum Rust Dissolver has been on the plane and also on the plane iron for the Bedrock plane for the last hour and 15 minutes. Let's see if this has actually done anything that's helpful for this Old Bailey number 5 plane. I've got a brass brush. I'll just lightly scrub it. And it is taking off the black appearance that was on it. You don't want to leave this Rust-Oleum Rust Dissolver on any metal surface for too long, especially overnight or longer than that. I'll go put some water on the paper towels and we can get the plane cleaned up the rest of the way. Well, it did take off the rust, but it left behind some black spots, as you can see there. I'll have to try to get those off by working it a little bit more, maybe with some steel wool. Yeah, I actually hit it again with some more water on paper towels to make sure I get all that substance off the surface. I should probably do the same thing on this plane iron here. Get a fresh paper towel. Wonder if maybe I could soak this in some vinegar overnight or for a couple hours at least. Maybe to take care of some of that staining that didn't come out. Okay, so let's sharpen this blade now. I'll pull out the Tormek and we can get started on it. I want to make sure that the back of the plane iron is flat. And so I'm going to use my water stone here, coarse side, just to kind of polish the backs of the cutter surface. Looks like we're making some good progress here. And I think that's probably good enough on the coarse side. Now to repeat the process on the fine side of the stone. That looks good. I'll get that cleaned up. And it looks like we've got a flat area all the way up to the cutting surface now. Now let's take care of the cutting surface on the Tormek. I set the blade angle to 25 degrees, which seems to be typical for the Stanley planes. I've also put some black marker on the bevel so that I can monitor the progress. And I've used the coarse side of the grading stone to make sure that this has got the rougher surface on it so that it'll grind fast. Okay, so this shows that we're making a straight cut all the way across with the previous grind that was on there. We're not at quite the same angle, so hopefully that's going to be okay. This may end up being a secondary grind. Let's check our progress. It looks like we've got it nearly cut all the way back to getting rid of the original bevel there. Okay, it looks like we've got all of the bevel cut back now, and now we can switch over to the finer grit. Yeah, the grind looks pretty good. It's still not sharp enough. I am feeling a burr on the back side, and so that means that we're making good progress. Okay, let's switch over to doing honing. I've got the composite honing wheel on here right now, which is not supposed to need any honing compound. I'll put a little bit of honing compound on it anyway. Seems like the last time I used this composite honing wheel, it didn't leave that sharp of an edge. It's what I got with the original honing wheel. I've got the Tormek spun around so that now it's spinning away from me. Start out by honing the backside, which is where the burr should be at right now. Okay, so there's the cutting edge. It looks like it's pretty sharp. I don't know if it'll cut paper. Let's give it a shot and see what happens here. Yeah, it doesn't seem to be doing a real good job of cutting paper. At least not as well as I expected. It's doing about as well as those Stanley black planes that I've sharpened previously, which is not saying too much. Okay, let's get this mounted into the plane and see how we do. Now the plane iron was actually a little bit sharper than what I thought it was. I accidentally jabbed myself with the corner of it and it drew blood pretty easily. So I've got the plane iron mounted into the Bedrock plane. I've got a piece of rough sawn black walnut here. I thought I'd give it a shot on this black walnut and see how well it does. I don't know if I've got the depth of cut set right on this plane yet or not. It's set the same way it was when I got the plane. So let's see how it does here. Okay, so we're not getting anything. So we need to try to advance the cutter a little bit. A little bit more. And we're getting some shavings. Well, here's a sample of the shavings. Looks like it's doing an okay job. I don't know if it's as fun as running a router, but it seems to be doing alright. And I guess if you have a bit of stress you need to get rid of, this might be a good way to do it. Well, I think that's a success. 20 years in the making, me trying to find a plane like this, getting one, and forgetting about it for quite a few years, and then finally getting it set up so that it can actually cut beautiful shavings. Well, that's all for today. Thanks for watching. Bye.